Peace, everybody. Welcome to Capital of Combat. The name says it all. I'm Hakeem Branch.
Rob Jerome.
And today we're going to preview this Saturday's pretty heavy fight card where we got fights on both sides of the Atlantic. With both big televised fights, I should say. There's fights going on all over the world. But today we are going to focus on, over in the UK, we got a big fight for a piece of the heavyweight title between Anthony Joshua and Thurman-Porter. And on the undercard of that, we have George Groves facing Martin Murray in kind of what they call like a crossroads fight. And then over here in the States, we got Keith Thurman and Sean Porter duking it out for welterweight supremacy. They are trying to get that picture cleared out since the departure of some other guy. And we're going to get one step closer to finding out who that guy is. Excuse me. Since the UK fights are going to be on first, at least for most of the people that are probably going to watch this, we're going to go ahead and cover those first. So we're going to start with Groves and Murray. Take it away, Rob.
All right, so Martin Murray is kind of a hard luck guy, and Groves has he's been really pretty good up until he ran into a guy by the name of Carl Froch. Lost 2 fights to him by a knockout, then came back, then he lost to Badu Jack in a very entertaining fight, very tactical, and he's working that way back up on the 168-pound list because that is actually a fairly deep division right now. It's a lot of young up-and-coming talent, and he's kind of that guy that's kind of the outside looking in right now a little bit. So with Murray, I see Groves beating Murray because he kind of has a frenetic style. To me, it looks tiring, but in the Badu Jack fight, I think because Jack isn't such a blistering puncher, he was able to hang in there more and carried into the later rounds. He still looked pretty active and pretty good. Well, Murray, I think he's just been through so much, and he's not a knockout artist, and I'm not sure if he has the power to keep Groves off him, and I'm not sure if he has the foot speed or the hand speed to do so anyway.
Yeah, I can see that. Also, I think Murray's going to do a little better during this fight, especially later on, because like you said, Groves has that frenetic pace, and he does seem to slow down. And Murray is a very consistent guy.
Right.
He's gonna be there, throwing a consistent number of punches each round, even late into the fight. And he was able to drop Sergio Martinez late. Yep. And he lasted I think he was he went the longest against Golovkin during his knockout streak. So he went to like the 11th round.
Yeah.
And I think the longest anyone else was 10, which is a long time to be taking punches from Golovkin.
Right. He did have a decision at some point.
No, I'm talking about during his knockout streak.
Oh, his knockout streak, yeah.
Yeah. But he's a tough guy, and he's moving up to 68, so he may be a little healthier, maybe a little stronger, maybe able to generate a bit more pop. And we've seen Groves a little susceptible to punches late in fights because both of the Froch knockouts happened late in the fight after he got tired. His technique starts to falter a little bit.
Right. And
you have someone in Murray who's very consistent and I wouldn't say he's very technical, but he's
methodical.
Yes, methodical. There we go. That's a good word for it. So I think Groves is going to start out fast. He's going to probably take like the first 4 to 6 rounds, and then things will start to get interesting from there.
Right.
And that's what we're really going to have to see, if Groves can continue to just hold on, because if he does take 4 to 6 rounds, he only needs to win 1 to 2 more, and he wins the fight. So that's what we're going to be looking at for that one.
That's
to
right.
See how he handles Murray, and if he can really make a statement to say, hey, I'm still a player in this division. You guys need to watch out for me.
That's right.
So let's move on to the main event. We have Anthony Joshua making his first defense of the IBF heavyweight title that he won from knocking out Charles Martin a few months ago. I can't remember the exact date he did it, but it was April. It was in April.
April. Yeah.
It was
March, April. Yeah, somewhere around there.
But anyway, his challenger, Dominic Breazeale, is a American Olympian who is undefeated, high knockout record, ton of flaws. Go ahead, Rob.
All right, so the last time we saw him, he was in a fight versus Amir Mansour, who was handily winning that fight up until he got caught with a actually really good uppercut thrown by Breazeale, and then
made him bite his tongue.
Made his bite his tongue almost in half, so he couldn't breathe. He couldn't. It was blood all in his mouth, and I think he lasted one more round.
Yeah,
and then he had to retire. And that says a lot because Breazeale's about 6'6", 6'7", and Joshua's about 6'6", 6'7". And of Mansour, who has decent speed, good technique, but he's a flaw fighter as well, and he's also a southpaw.
And he's very short.
Well, for a heavyweight, I think he's about 6'1".
I don't think he's that tall. He might be like 6 even.
Yeah, he looked that much shorter than Breazeale. And the thing about Breazeale is that he's not that athletic, doesn't have that hand speed, poor technique on a lot of the stuff that he does, and oh God, he doesn't really hit that cleanly. Oh God, it's a laundry list of things.
Yeah, he's not that impressive to say the least. I mean, I wouldn't go as far to say I wouldn't say many derogatory things about him, like overly derogatory, like some people may do. But as far as like a polished fighter that you look at and say, hey, I like what I see out of this guy, you don't see that with him.
No.
That's how I'll put it.
And
like Rob said, the myriad of technical mistakes, his vulnerability to be hit and be hurt by guys who are not as polished and not as fast and not as tall as Anthony Joshua. This is looking like a disaster waiting to happen for Breazeale.
And he's going up against a guy who has Olympic pedigree,
good Olympic pedigree.
Yeah, like a gold medal level Olympic pedigree.
Because Breazeale did go to the Olympics as well.
Who has, 100% knockout streak rate?
Yeah, his knockout, he is 16-0 with 16 knockouts.
And these aren't like, I'm going to knock you out later round. No, these are, you're about to go out in 3 rounds, and he'll do it in 2. I think the hardest fight he had was versus Dillian White.
Yep.
He got hurt. He recovered, and Dillian White is a guy who's about 6, not quite as big and not as strong, but pretty good prospect. And he eventually knocked him out. And Breazeale, I don't think is as good as White. See, Breazeale, to me, both of them being tall, I think Joshua's 6'5", 6'6", Breazeale's about 6'6", 6'7", and he has the longer reach. But again, he does
not use the reach at all.
Hands low, doesn't really stick the jab out there, and we're going to get a guy that he could put his foot on the pedal and just step in. He steps in with his punches. He can be a little stiff, but from what I've seen, he good punch resistant. He goes for the knockout. He sets up his punches well. This is gonna look bad. I will be surprised if it go past 3.
Yeah.
And that's and Breazeale. The thing about Breazeale, even the fights that he hasn't looked great in early, he's been able to come back and grind out a win for whatever reason. So
he is tough. That's probably the best thing about him. He can weather the storm and come out on top, like Rob said, because he is undefeated. And if you guys didn't watch last week on NBC, we had Andrew Farfara fighting Joe Smith. Yeah. And a fight that nobody really expected anything to happen. It was like, this is in Farfara's hometown against a guy nobody's heard of who can punch. And most of the times, you know, it's a guy fighting local. He never fought outside of New York.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes in there and he mollywops Andrew Fonfara.
Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen because Fonfara is not Anthony Joshua.
Right. But it could happen. That's why you have the cliche of why they fight the fights. You still have to go in there and win. And I'm saying that to say that that's really the only way I see Dominic Brezeale winning this fight, is if he catches Anthony Joshua early, hurts him badly, and finishes him.
So this is what I would say. If one, make it past the first 3 rounds, because while Brezeale isn't in great shape, I mean, he doesn't have that look that Joshua has.
No.
But Joshua is heavily muscled.
Yes.
So we need to see how he carries that muscle, because it takes a lot to power those muscles through several rounds. I remember it's a 12-round fight. Neither of these guys have gone 12 rounds.
Right. I don't think Brezeale's going past 8, maybe 6.
Mm-hmm. So these guys haven't gone that far in fights in their careers. So we have to see who can carry who longer and who keeps form better. And I think as Brezeale, I think his team helps with that. Like, okay, do this.
Right.
With Joshua, he has to impose his will. Like I said, he has to step into Brezeale's wheelhouse because he doesn't have a great jab. He drops his hands. He can throw over the top, which he did versus White very well. So that's what I'm looking for. Brezeale's just got to catch him. I think
that's really the only way I see him winning that fight.
Yeah, and he's got to catch him. He's got to do something and catch him coming in, because I can't see him leading unless, and I will say this, and I know this is going to be difficult because I've seen Joshua's workouts and he's strong as all be darned. Bully him if he can. Like Brezeale's an ex-football player, even though he's a quarterback. He's huge. You talk about 6'7", I think 260 pounds, 50, 60 pounds, maybe more. And Joshua usually comes in at roughly 240, kind of like the Klitschko's do. So make those muscles work.
Yeah.
Maul them. Now, I'm not saying his coach is going to tell him that, but if I was Brezeale, make it as ugly as humanly possible.
It could work. I mean, it worked for Tyson Fury.
Yeah, test it, make it ugly, test his inside game.
Even though he didn't do a lot of inside stuff, he was very awkward. And,
right.
You know, he just threw Klitschko off his rhythm, which is what, you know, if he can do what Rob is saying, he will throw Joshua off his rhythm, because he's probably expecting him to try to keep range because he's so tall. So if he goes out there, he starts crowding his space, they might be like, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? And if he can catch him before he adjusts, he's got a belt.
And when he gets in there, and I'm not talking about maul him and just hug and move, I'm talking about keep your hands moving, hit anything that's open, and wear him down. Take his legs away. That's all. That would be, if I was Brezeale's coach, that's what I would tell him. Joshua, just step in, keep doing what you're doing. Punch either with him because he's faster, or punch over those lazy jabs.
Yep.
All right.
So let's move on to the main event. We've discussed this one enough. We got Sean Showtime Porter, Keith One Time Thurman. Is this it for a belt?
No, I don't think either one of them has a belt. Is this an eliminator?
No, I think it is for a belt, because Errol Spence is fighting an eliminator to fight the winner of this fight. I'm just not sure which belt it is. Danny Garcia has the WBC.
Thurman's WBA welterweight title.
Thurman's welterweight title. All right. So, yeah, because Kell Brook has IBF. And who has the WBO?
We'll put that in the what's name.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. Keith Thurman, Sean Porter, they're not up and coming anymore. They have arrived. They are some of the stars in the welterweight division. They are some of the top names. They're in the top 10 of the division. Sean Porter is a former champ. Keith Thurman is a current champ. And Thurman is undefeated. Sean Porter has only lost to Kell Brook. He just recently beat Adrian Broner. So we have two young, confident, hungry guys because they want to take that number one spot and possibly even elevate themselves to pay-per-view level to replace some other guys.
Yeah.
Now,
There's a vacancy at number 1.
yes. This is a fight that can go several different ways because of how each guy fights.
Mm-hmm.
And it has the potential to be really good or really bad. And I say that because of what each guy does well to negate the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. With Keith Thurman, he is a guy that likes to come out early and try and bomb you out of there. Try to test your chin, test your body, laying really hard punches. And if you don't succumb to that early, then he starts to pot shot you. But the power still carries.
Mm-hmm.
With Porter, you have a guy that is straight up going to bully you. That is what he does. He is no nonsense. He is going to leap in on you. He is going to push you around. He's going to work the body when he's in there. And he's going to be in your face all night. Now, that is where it could get ugly. Because if Thurman is not able to control the distance and let Porter get in constantly, but then tries to tie him up, we get a very slow fight.
Right.
If he can control the distance a little bit, and if Porter fixes some of those things where he a lot of times smothers his punches, sometimes misjudges distance, and ends up throwing a punch either when he's too close or too far away, and that's how he ends up into someone's space,
Mm-hmm.
then we get a lot of holding and we get a lot of stoppages. And then if we get past that and Thurman starts to move and Porter can't cut the ring off on him, then we start to see the action slow down as well. But if these two guys both access their strengths in the proper way, we could be looking at something special. What you got?
I think this is going to be a great fight. If these guys come, I just come on their A game. Porter has to, because he lunges in and smothers his punches, if I'm Thurman, you stop his momentum, and then you catch him coming in. Kell Brook did a great job of throwing that nose-breaking jab to keep Porter off him for most of the fight. And Porter was still getting to him. That shows a lot about how much tenacious he is. Because that fight was closer than what people give it credit for.
Yeah, it was a pretty close fight. It was still a clean, very clean win for Brook, but it was a close fight.
Right. I think Thurman is faster than Brook, but I don't think he has quite that jab to keep him all balanced. Now, when Porter comes in, if he steps and throws that hook like Broner did to knock down Porter, that's a difference. Because once if he comes in before his feet at times when he lunges in, if he can keep his feet under him, Porter's going to get to him. But if he doesn't, he can be caught coming in all night.
Yeah, and against Keith Thurman, getting caught coming in is something you do not want to do.
But if Porter can remain tenacious but in control, what he's going to end up doing is trying to burn Thurman's legs out. Because Thurman, again, I saw it versus Guerrero. I saw it versus Bundu. Is it Mbundu?
Yeah, just Bundu.
Bundu, where if he can't get a guy out of there, I'm not saying he retreats, but he starts using the whole ring to his detriment. Because that's when Guerrero started to put more pressure on.
Right.
And that mental pressure from Porter can really burn him out.
Yeah, because Porter is a lot bigger than Robert Guerrero.
Yeah, he may be 5'6", but this guy fought at middleweight at one point, and he's shrinking down.
He actually fought in the amateurs at like 165.
Right, he fought, was it Andre Ward?
Yeah.
So that should tell you how big, and he played football, so he's big, strong, athletic, and he's a workhorse. When I mean this guy has energy for days, he has energy for days.
He also has a very deceptive reach as well. When he does use his jab.
Right.
Because if you look at him physically, he has a very, very wide back, which extends his reach. And if he can utilize that to then get in on Thurman, Thurman's going to have some work to do. We haven't really seen Thurman do a lot of inside work. He did a little bit versus Bundu and a little bit versus Collazo, but not to the effect that Sean Porter does or some of the other guys who like to work on the inside. And honestly, he has a lot of power, but I'm not sure if he's as physically strong as he will need to be to control Porter if they do clinch, like Kell Brook was able to do.
Right.
Kell Brook was a lot stronger than a lot of people, like especially us, anticipated coming into that fight.
Well, he's another very muscular and bigger than what you think, because I think he fought a couple fights at 154 too.
Yes, he did. But I don't think Thurman's going to be able to use that specific game plan because, like Rob said, he doesn't have that type of flagpole jab, and he doesn't have, well, we don't know if he has that physical strength.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to have to catch him either coming in or utilize the distance and use that footwork to create angles so Porter's lunges end up missing completely where he's throwing at air. That can help wear Porter down as well, because even though he has a tremendous battery, you keep missing punches like that and then getting tagged in various places, you're going to slow down a little bit. And all he needs is for him to slow down just a little bit for him to live up to his nickname and put him down.
Now, he hasn't been getting the knockouts that he's used to. I think his last knockout was Collazo.
Yes.
And we know Porter has a good chin. He got knocked down. He ended up getting right back against Broner.
Yeah.
Kept coming. So,
and he took a lot of straight, strong shots from Kell Brook and never really looked too phased.
So,
but I think he was hurt versus Julio Diaz.
He was hurt versus Julio Diaz. That's why they fought twice.
Right. That first fight was a draw.
Yeah, and he came back and he looked much better. So we know what Porter can do if he's in control.
Yes.
We saw that versus Malignaggi.
Yeah. I saw that fight and I was like, he's finally turned the corner. And I was wrong. But, whatever.
So it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a very enjoyable fight. I think those guys are going to have spots. I don't think anyone's getting knocked out. I can actually see this going as a majority, not a majority decision, split decision. And I don't know who. This is a hard fight to pick.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of factors going on to who can win this fight. And a split decision sounds about right. A split or majority decision. I don't think this is going to be a clean win for either guy. And maybe, twisting my arm, I think because Thurman can land the more showy, judge-friendly punches, it'll probably go his way. Unless Porter, like I said, there's so many unless Porter can completely handcuff him, like he did Broner, then yeah, I think Thurman's going to pull out a very, very close, maybe even controversial decision.
I don't have a pick yet. I will put one on the Facebook page and probably down below later on this week when I come up with an actual decision, because I'm trying to think those guys at the top of their game are probably the best. I think Porter has looked better lately, even with the loss.
Yeah.
And not to mention that Thurman, I believe, has been hurt more than once. He
was hurt versus Soto Carras.
No, he was hurt versus Soto Carras. I think Guerrero was getting to him.
I think something happened in the Collazo fight.
Right. Yeah. So, but it's not just that. I'm talking about even injury-wise, because
he was in a car accident.
Yeah. So we don't know what kind of toll that's going to take on him either.
Yeah,
so,
he had a lot of neck trouble.
Yeah. So it depends. I'll have my pick later on this week.
So many variables.
I'll probably have it officially after the weigh-in. So just stay tuned, and you'll see my picks coming up.
All right. So yeah, enjoy all those fights. They're gonna be great. That's it for this video. Make sure you like it, subscribe down below. Hit us up on the social networks. They're all in the links below, right under the subscribe button. Message. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.
This is round one, and you've already lost. They don't seem to see that everything we've done is come at a cost. My fists are on fire, I perform till I perspire. My demons are in a rage, keep thinking that it's a game. I kick crime, hurricane. I told them I don't play, I'm liquid.
Black Street Fighter.